We need to find a way to get in good trouble, necessary trouble, if we're going to save America.
This is Paige. Welcome to the Necessary Trouble Show. Here's your host, my dad, Russell Fugett.
I, like many of you, were distressed, angered, frustrated by the results of the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville, Kentucky. In this moment in our democracy, so many things are at stake. Of course, here on our show and across the country, you're seeing so many calls to action. The primary call to action is to vote. There's so many things that we want to do and see changed in this moment. Of course, it is said that justice delayed is justice denied. And in this sense, without a doubt, justice for Breonna Taylor is being denied. One officer was indicted for shooting recklessly into the apartment building and shooting a wall, yet Breonna Taylor was murdered and no one is being held accountable. Some would say our system is broken. Some would say it's operating exactly how it's intended to operate. In any regard, we must remake the system. We must, of course, be the change we want to see in the world, but we must organize and strategize and work collaboratively in our communities to effect change. Of course, this does start on Election Day, but it will continue well beyond that. I'm not sure what our democracy will look like after Election Day. I'm not even totally clear if we'll have one that will recognize, or that many of us, or maybe even most of us, will want to continue to be a part of and reside in. But nonetheless, we are home in our lands and our houses and our communities, and there is work that will need to be done. It is my sincerest hope that there will not be violence and that bloodshed will not be required to keep us together. So we must organize. We must work within the system to change it. We must agitate from outside to force our leadership to change. We must remake the laws, starting in our state houses and local jurisdictions, and working up to the federal level from there. So of course, the federal elections, the Senate election, the presidential election is sucking up all the oxygen. We must begin to have a keen vision for what must come next, even in this moment, as so many of us feel distressed and angst about our current state in this country. We must begin to shape and craft a vision for how we move our beloved community forward. In that regard, this special episode with Pastor LeVar Jones and Pastor Larry Mack will help begin to shed some light for those of us who are in the spirit of John Lewis and those of us in the Christian faith can begin to move forward, but really for all of us in this country can begin to move forward and work towards the change. And perhaps even though while justice is directly denied for Breonna Taylor, her death will not be in vain and will serve as a catalyst to motivate and inspire and move all of us and move a generation forward to make change where that everyone is held accountable. We're all each held accountable, no matter what your job, your station, your position in life, for the lives of our fellow citizens. Thank you for watching Necessary Trouble Show. Email us at ntshow@goodworddigital.com if you'd like to be a guest or know someone who could benefit from being on this platform. Please share and subscribe. We're making space for those who some of you may know in time coming to this space, but mostly for those who you do not know, who are on the ground doing this important work to shape our society. And as the late, great Congressman John Lewis said, doing the necessary work to save the soul of America.
Thanks, Paige. Welcome back to Necessary Trouble here at the Good Word Digital Studios. I'm joined by two very special guests and my friends, my brothers in Christ. First, I'm joined by LeVar Jones, who is the youth and young adult pastor at New Macedonia Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. And I'm also joined by Associate Pastor Larry Mack of I-5 City Church in Glen Burnie, Maryland, just outside of Baltimore. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us on the Necessary Trouble Show today.
Yeah, thank you for having us, man. Yep.
All right. Pastor LeVar, I want to start with you in Washington, D.C. Obviously, I know we've been communicating and talking about so many things that have been happening over the summer, whether it be impacts of COVID on our young people, even the violence going on in DC and what solutions we might have. What are you seeing and experiencing and working towards right now in the district?
So again, Russell, thank you for having me on today. Pleasure to join you, and Larry, good to be here with you as well. There's so much for our young people and for all of us as Black and Brown people to unpack with everything going on as we manage both of these pandemics, in our community. And one of the things that I'm hearing from young people over and over again is just an inundation of frustration and just being tired. So our goal now is helping to channel any of that frustration into actionable steps, helping young people find platforms to use their voice in different ways, whether it is having critical conversations that raise the bar and raise the level of social constructs in our community, looking at civic engagement, figuring out ways that young people can engage with the voting process even before they turn 18, just giving them platforms and giving them room and space and opportunity to breathe, and also to channel all of this energy that all of us are feeling, into something that is going to make an impact, and helping them see that their voices do in fact make an impact. I think too many of our young people feel like they can't, but our job has been to help create those platforms so that they understand that their voices do make an impact.
Excellent. And Larry, likewise, I know you've been doing a lot of work, particularly in Southwest Baltimore, but being a member of I-5 City Church, in full transparency, the reach and the scope of what has been happening with food distribution and so many things has really gone throughout the region, all the way from Northern Virginia up to Baltimore and places in between. I know we're getting ready to have just done some work actually yesterday. Tell us about some of the work you're doing at I-5.
Globally speaking, I oversee kind of our week-to-week outreach initiatives. We've partnered with the city of Baltimore in providing school lunches throughout the pandemic during the summertime. We also serve our community members who are experiencing homelessness on a weekly basis, providing showers, providing hot meals on our mobile food truck. We also provide ministry. Just as a church, we provide ministry. We also do food distribution throughout the region. So that's from Maryland to PG County, DC, Virginia. We have a partnership with the USDA. So a lot of community outreach, but specifically with young people. We did have a mentorship program with Benjamin Franklin High School, which is a high school in South Baltimore, probably the southernmost high school in Baltimore City, where we encourage kids just in critical thinking, future foresight, things like that. Since the pandemic, we haven't been operating in that program too much, but we're looking to embark on some small group gatherings with young people starting in October. Again, just to encourage. One of the things that one of my philosophies with mentorship is that it's important that we get to know where these kids are coming from and engage them on that platform versus coming in with all the quote unquote answers and saying, hey, if you want to be successful in life, this is what you need to do, and stop doing that, start doing this, and you'll be okay. But we really want to find out, what do these kids value fundamentally, and how do we help them accomplish things that will lead to them fulfilling those values, those underlying values. So that's just some of the things that we're doing.
Excellent. You're watching Necessary Trouble Show. I'm Russell Fugett, and this segment is brought to you by Good Word Digital. If you need a fast, affordable website in order to get discovered online, visit us at goodworddigital.com. Larry, I want to stick with you, and of course, there's been so much tumult going on, and we're a little less than 6 weeks, heading to 5 weeks to Election Day. In the spirit of John Lewis, in which this show was created, not only do we want to get to a more perfect union, but we really want to figure out how to establish the beloved community here on earth. What are you seeing and sensing in this moment in our country's history?
If I could use a word, the word I would use is emotion. From my perspective, and even with what's happening this week with Breonna is there's a lot of feeling. There's a lot of feeling going on, and I think what Pastor LeVar was saying earlier about actionable steps and how can young people use their what platform can they use to have their voice heard. I think that is the next step, because right now and throughout this year, especially with this election, it's heightened emotions. We see things, we are witnessing things, and we're feeling, if I'm just being honest, we're feeling more than we're thinking. We're feeling more than we're strategizing. Not that those things aren't happening, but emotion is the, no pun intended, the trump card. It is actually pun intended. It's emotion. It's I'm feeling this, so I need to say it. And we figured out so many ways to say how we feel. We've got so many memes that I've seen this week already, and I'm looking at them like, well, what are these memes accomplishing? So many protests, so many songs, so many references in entertainment and TV shows and things like that. And I am hoping for more talk about strategy. What can we do? Who do we talk to? I'm literally right now writing a short curriculum on Maryland government. Just people don't know how it works. People don't know who to call and who's who. So that's what I'm working on right now.
That's beautiful. That civic education piece is so important, and is definitely one of the themes, and probably so far the strongest theme to emerge from us doing this show in the last few weeks. Pastor LeVar, what are you sensing and seeing in this moment from your perspective?
And as I was listening to Pastor Larry, I was thinking of the quote from Baldwin: "To be Black and conscious in America is to live in a constant state of rage." And so I agree 100%. What Black communities right now are processing is all of these feelings and emotions, and how, again, do we channel that, into action? You've got folks who are on the front line who are doing the protest work. But then there's also folks on the front line who are doing the policy work. There's folks on the front line who are doing the education work. And all of those pieces are critical, but there's also the idea of, and you see it floating around, that our existence is an act of resistance as well. And so one of the things that I definitely have seen, has been this celebration of our culture, this understanding that Black culture really is American culture, because it is at the fiber and the heart of every part of our culture within this community. And so, again, it's a balancing act where we are breaking free of shackles that have kept us back from celebrating our Blackness in every way, shape, and form, and not having to make a choice of which part of my Blackness I'm going to celebrate. I am Black and I am Christian, but I can be a Black Christian at the same time. I don't have to trade off. I'm not going to let people get me, pulled into conversations of, well, if you say Black Lives Matter, are you supporting the organization or the movement? Those are divisive conversations that we cannot afford to make time for. We must stay focused. And that's the biggest thing for me, the biggest lesson I've learned in the last few weeks, and that I'm carrying with me for the next 5 to 6 weeks, is staying focused. There are so many distractions. One of them lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, who are designed to get us off guard, off track, off focus from what it is that we have been doing, how we connect the protest work with the policy work, how we connect those works with the prayer work, like how we combine all of this as believers, and what role the faith community plays in protest and policy and at the polls. So, with all that we are managing, we must stay focused. We cannot allow distractions to pull us either way, to get us caught in divisive conversations against each other. We got to stay focused, celebrate who we are, and keep pushing and moving towards the ultimate goal of liberty and liberation for our people.
Now, I know I've had some conversations with both of you around this next topic as we kind of get towards the conclusion. I think this will be the last question. Everybody, of course, right now in this moment is harping on voting, and including in this show, again, in the spirit of John Lewis, not to oversell it, but the Voting Rights Act, voting is important in this moment, and certainly it is as a civic duty. Beyond the election, what are we looking at doing in terms of how we as Christians can impact society to move us forward? What types of policies or structures are we looking at where we can move to begin to make a difference and really see things shift in our communities? LeVar?
Yeah, well, I think we've got to get back to a time where the Black church was really at the center of civic engagement and civil rights in our community. Every meeting, every protest, started. We took young people for the Our Lives Matter teen campaign. We took them to the 16th Street Baptist Church a couple years ago and held a youth summit there. And to be on such holy ground and have conversations with these young people about civic engagement in a space where things like the Birmingham Children's Project was launched, and to even visualize and picture, hundreds, if not thousands of young people gathered on the steps of 16th Street. We got to get back to where the church remains the church, where we adapt, but we do not assimilate. We adapt to the current setting, but we do not assimilate. We stand true on the principles of the kingdom, and we allow ourselves to be a force within the middle of the work that's going on. That means we've got to mobilize our people to be actively engaged in the voting process and preparing to vote. Here in DC, I know that there's an Adopt a Precinct program that the DC Board of Elections has, and churches, in addition to other community groups, can sign up to adopt a precinct. Get out and work the poll lines in your community. Pray for folks that are there. Take snacks, take little water bottles with your church's name, whatever you got to do. Engage in the process so that the church is seen as the viable entity that she is. If we don't, we will lose our validity in every next movement that is coming for our community.
Pastor Larry?
All right. So I'm saying amen. Amen. that there was a time where the Black church was extremely solid in mobilizing on political matters. And I think we live in an age now where politics is taboo. You don't talk about who you're voting for. You don't talk about your party affiliation and things like that. And I feel like that taboo, that political correctness is a device to divide. We think we're being cordial when we say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about." Well, why can't we? The fact that that's an issue makes things even worse, because now we can't talk about it, and if we can't talk about it, we can't unify behind anything. But with the church, because of that taboo, the church has distanced itself. Particularly the Black church has distanced itself. Really, not everybody, but if I'm looking globally on political matters, especially the progressive contemporary church, it's very, we don't want to say where we stand, but I heard it. I can't remember who said it, but if you say you don't get involved in politics, that's a political statement in itself. So you're involving yourself just by stating that. You're making a political stance just by saying that. And I think that the church, as a church, we do need to look at, because our values as believers are impacted, right? And I'm not talking about the hot topic values that many think when they think about church: abortion, LGBTQ rights, things like that, Second Amendment rights, the things that the church is usually. I'm talking about real Christian values about how community works, how we believe in sharing and loving one another and caring for, like, there are certain values that we have that are challenged by certain political, for lack of a better term, standpoints. Like we're challenged, right? We say we believe this way, but the culture is leaning this way, and we use our pulpit, but the politics is just as important. And so we don't know, our congregations rather don't know what to rally behind, besides, the big three political topics, which really, if you ask me, aren't strong focuses or things that the church should be strongly focused on. That's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the church at large, or even for I5. I'm speaking for myself right now. But we are also uneducated, and I can't stress that enough. We're looking at November, and we're just thinking about get Trump. People are thinking get Trump out of there, or let's hold down the fort, keep Trump in there, and that's what everyone's focused on. But there's so much more to politics than the White House, and we hear it said it needs to be stressed. There's so much happening on the ground. There's so many representatives in different seats that have influence and can make things happen. And we don't know who to rally behind. We don't know, the delegate to rally behind, or the county councilman to rally behind, or the city council person to rally behind, or what's happening with judges. Like, these things need to be stressed, because here's how I see it. Who's going to be a president? Who's going to be a president in 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 16 years from now? They're in the Senate somewhere. They're sitting in a representative role right now somewhere, and those are the people we should be looking at today and preparing for. Who's going to be sitting in that seat in the future. If we're looking at our representatives locally, and we're saying let's make sure every aspect of our local government is strong, because one of these people could be the next one on that big seat. So that broad kind of view. But if I can kind of sum up, just the church being empowered to speak on certain things politically, and then focusing our efforts on educating people, and getting past that emotion, turning that emotion into action.
And working backwards, I think we both can say, looking at DC and Baltimore, we have former city council members who are now mayors, right? And so,
yep.
As you start looking at that grassroots and where you can have relationship and have impact and build community, starting right there locally where you are. Next thing you know, you may have a mayor, governor, president. So It is certainly very important. And also, Larry, I think something else you mentioned out was key, is that understanding our American rights through the prism of our faith in the gospel, not the other way around. I think sometimes, too often in the church, we prioritize, and our first lens, if you will, is our American rights, our constitutional rights, then our faith. And I think we have that a little bit backwards sometimes, and unfortunately leads to outcomes that don't reflect the kingdom, I believe. So thank you both for being with us. Pastor LeVar, where can we find you online?
So I am I am LeVar Jones, and my mother would appreciate if you spell it LeVar, not LA, LeVar. So I am LeVar Jones, and that's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all platforms.
We do not want to disrespect your mother. So, so thank you for giving us that point of correction as we need it.
Yeah.
And Pastor Larry, where can we find you, Larry?
I'm also on Instagram at L Mack to go, letter L MACKTOGO. Yeah, that's where you can find me. DM me, talk to
Larry
me.
Mack, love it.
Personable.
All right, looking forward to that. I got my own sound. Just so our audience knows, our theme music, and also helping cajole my daughter Paige to do the voiceover, the intro and outro. Larry Mack is the producer of our music. And of course, in the very first episode, I thanked him, as you might have seen for those who are our regular watchers. Gentlemen, thank you both. I think we have to do this again after the election to really see where we are and see how we're going to go forward. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you both for being guests today on the Necessary Trouble Show.
Thanks for watching the Necessary Trouble Show. Please visit necessarytroubleshow.com to support the show and to learn more. Subscribe to our e-newsletter and podcast, and follow us on social media at Necessary Trouble Show.
Good job, Daddy. This is Paige. Thanks for watching.